Greetings, I'm Tom Bankston. I'm publisher of BankBeat Magazine and BankBeat.biz. This is the BankBeat.biz Quick Takes video blog. And I'm pleased at this time to have with me Brad Lane, who is president and CEO of the Security Savings Bank in Gowrie, Iowa. He's also chairman of the Iowa Bankers Association. Brad, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, you're kind of situated in the northwest corner, let's say quadrant of the state of Iowa, not too far from Des Moines, let's say halfway between Des Moines and maybe the Sioux City. How would you assess the economy in that area, and then maybe talk a little bit about the ag environment in that region as well?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are certainly a smaller rural community. We have 7 locations. The biggest town that we are located in is about 1,000 people. So just to kind of put that in perspective, we're definitely rural. There's no question about that. Ag is big in our area, and it's been a little bit of a struggle on the ag side of things here the last several years. Yields have been pretty good, but the prices have been depressed. And so maybe we've been kind of fortunate that we've had some pretty good yields, but the lower prices have really kind of taken a little bit of an effect on the farm economy in general, and probably even more so than the grain side of things. Probably the biggest thing that we've seen at this point in time that we're probably most concerned about is the livestock producers there. That's been a big challenge for them. They've had several tough years. And this year, as we all know, with COVID-19 going on, it's not going to be an easier year for them by any stretch of the imagination. And, livestock producers, they deal in big numbers. And, sometimes it takes several years to really get back to where they were before. And so that's the side that we're probably the most concerned about at this point in time. But, we're concerned about all areas of the ag economy as well.
Sure. Do you feel as though farmers go into this season positioned pretty well, in a position of strength, or maybe are they going into this with years of carryover debt and other issues?
Yeah, and every farmer is a little bit different, and obviously areas are different as well. I say for our particular portfolio, our farmers are in pretty good shape. Again, we've had some pretty good yields. The market facilitation payments that came out last year helped out tremendously. And so we didn't see a lot of carryover. We saw a little bit of carryover, but nothing that, was going to be anything too major going in. We had some really good years here, 5, 6, 7 years ago anyway. And when prices dropped, when we had $6, $7 corn, and when prices dropped after that, it was a little bit of a challenge for them to adjust. But most of these farmers now have made that adjustment. They've really tightened their belt, so to speak. And, they are running it like a true business, which they should. They're trying to make their operation as efficient as possible. And so most of them had themselves in a pretty good position, and at least in my opinion.
And what do you make of the price of land? Does it seem reasonable? Does it reflect the commodity prices today?
Yeah, and that was one thing that we had talked about here at the bank was whether or not land prices were going to drop. And they have dropped, a little bit from the high from several years ago. But over the last 2 or 3 years, land has really held its own. And, I think it's a combination of lots of different things there. But, it can be anywhere from, it's black dirt. It's a good investment. Maybe people don't want to invest in the stock market, what have you. But it's really held its own in this area. And we kind of thought with these lower prices, we'd see some lower sales on land, but that has not necessarily been the case in our area anyway.
Okay. And then, of course, the economy is broader than just agriculture. What about other sectors of the economy, maybe light manufacturing, retail, other things you might have going on in your community?
Yeah, and that's been a little bit of a struggle since COVID-19, kind of reared its ugly head there, so to speak. It's really tough on the restaurants, the hairdressers, the clinics, dental offices, whatever the case may be. It's been really hard on them because, they've essentially had to shut down. It's been very nice that the stimulus package was passed. There's been some money that have gotten into their hands. Obviously, the Paycheck Protection Program was very good, and it's allowed them to stay afloat. But I think my concern is how long is this going to last? And I don't think any of us truly know the answer to that question. So right now, it seems like they're doing okay. Everybody's raring to get back and get things back to a new normal, I guess, so to speak. But the big question is how long it's going to last. If this takes another 6 months or a year, there's going to be some major changes that occur. And my fear is there's going to be a lot of businesses that may or may not reopen as a result of this. But as of right now, things are going pretty well. One other thing we kind of take a look at too, just to kind of put this in perspective as well, is even overdrafts within the bank. When we see a lot of overdrafts, then we start to feel that the consumer out there is really struggling. They're having a tough time of it. And since the the stimulus package came out, and again the PPP loans came out, our overdrafts have actually been down considerably from what they have been before. So again, maybe that's just our bank, but for me, that kind of tells us, at least in our area, that so far they're doing okay. But again, how long can they continue like this?
And when you talk to business owners, business managers, do they express grave concern, or are they fairly optimistic, or how would you characterize their mood through all of this?
Yeah, I think at first, everybody was pretty optimistic. They knew this was a pandemic. They knew this was something that, we're just going to have to get through. But as time has gone on, I think they're getting a little more restless, I guess. They're ready to get out of this. In our area, we actually are in 4 different counties. And I just looked at that. If you add up all the counties, the number of COVID cases in our counties is just a little over 100. So we don't have a lot of cases in our area. Therefore, that kind of translates to a lot of those business owners maybe seeing, a little bit of frustration coming out of them that, we're not seeing a lot of cases in this area. Why are we continuing to be, shut down as a result? Now, in the state of Iowa, we are starting to open up. And so, we're going to see some changes there. And, restaurants are now able to run at 50% capacity. And so the mood's changed a little bit, but in our area, it really feels like, people, they're ready to take that next step for the most part.
How about in terms of loan demand? Are you seeing the levels of loan demand you would typically expect at this time of year, or is it off, or maybe even you're ahead? What do you see?
Yeah, loan demand's been really good. Obviously, with that Paycheck Protection Program, we did a lot of loans in that capacity. So that kept our loan officers extremely busy. In that regard, because of that program, we've done a lot more loans than what we normally do. On the flip side, again, we're mostly agriculture. So as a result of that, we haven't seen a lot of changes in the demand for the ag side of things. I mean, it's kind of business as usual on that side, but it is the Paycheck Protection Programs that's really added a lot of demand for loans for our bank anyway.
And with PPP, there's a big surge of business at the front end of that, with people applying for the loans. Now, eventually, we're going to be getting into the phase where people are applying for the grants, for the forgiveness. How do you feel about having to process those applications? I understand that application's 11 pages long compared to the 2-page app to apply for the loan.
Yeah, and that's a great question. When the program first came out, our big concern was, one, we didn't really know what the rules were. And no offense to anybody, whether it was a Treasury or SBA, it was a new program. It was rolled out, came out very quickly. And, they got us, as much information as they could, but we were still kind of wondering a little bit, how is this going to work? Who qualifies? How's it going to be forgiven? And I know that was maybe a little bit on the later side there on the forgiveness, but, we really kind of questioned how this was going to work. And, once we got that all into place, then we kind of felt, fairly comfortable that we wanted to try to get as many local people in the area on board with that program. And it's been, very good to say the least. And as you said, now the next phase there is going into the forgiveness side. So, we've been telling all our customers, these are the rules as we know it at this point in time. but they might change a little bit. And so we haven't really promised these businesses that, it's going to be 100% forgiven. And keep that in mind, that you may only get a percentage of this. And, it's worked out pretty well, but, a lot of the loan officers here at the bank worked extremely hard to get these loan customers in place, because quite frankly, we were worried we were going to run out of money and we weren't going to be able to get this to all our business owners. But, luckily we were able to get them to everybody that, wanted it. Obviously there's still money out there at this point in time. In the near future, in the next month and a half, then we will start that forgiveness phase. And, that's going to be a challenge too, understanding exactly how that's going to work. But I have no doubt we'll get through it easy enough.
Tell me a little bit about the competitive arena that you're in. Who are the competitors that keep you up at night? And obviously credit unions are a factor everywhere for bankers. It seems like the credit union competition is particularly acute in Iowa. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for us, it's kind of twofold. We're ag, and so Farm Credit is a major competitor for us. But then, of course, yeah, as you stated, the credit unions, it's big. And really the scary part about the credit unions is the fact that they have grown so rapidly in a short period of time. I know IBA has stated that the credit unions, the largest ones anyway, have grown 278% in the last 10 years alone. So to kind of put that in perspective, banks in the state of Iowa have grown 45% in the last 10 years. So the rate of growth has been very significant, very rapid. And so that's a concern. Does that continue to go down that path? If it does, that's a tough pill to swallow for all these bankers in these communities. These banks in a lot of these communities have been around for over 100 years, and our goal is to take care of our communities and our people, and it becomes more difficult when you have entities out there that have that tax advantage. And again, we're going to continue to do the best we can, but with technology out there, it does become more competitive, and that's the part that really makes us nervous, because the dynamics have changed in that capacity, and no doubt we'll continue to work hard to maintain that business, but it is a big difference there when you have that tax advantage.
Yeah, you mentioned the Iowa Bankers Association. I'm going to give you the last
Yes.
minute of this interview here to just reflect on your year of service. You are the IBA chairman. That's a big responsibility. The convention's in September, so you've got a few months to go yet. But as you reflect back on your presidency, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was told when I came into that role that it was going to go by very quickly. And, here we are, May, almost June at this point in time. And that's very true. It has gone by very quickly. There's been a lot that's gone on. I think probably, some of the things that have changed, or maybe is maybe a little bit different than what I expected, was, normally we're probably looking towards advocating a little bit more for tax equity, regulatory relief, the regulatory side of things there. But when COVID-19 came in, I think the focus really changed. It changed from those areas to trying to figure out what can Iowa Bankers Association do for their member banks, which in turn will help their communities. And so that's probably the biggest change that I didn't see coming. And of course, with COVID-19, nobody saw that coming. And so that's probably the biggest change in that regard. And obviously, we're still advocating for tax equity and reg relief and those type of issues. But when it was all said and done, at this point of the juncture anyway, what's really important to us anyway is making sure that these banks have the tools that they need in order to take care of their communities.
Sure. Well, Brad, of course, I don't think anybody expected this pandemic. And yes, the industry has really had to pivot to accommodate. It's really been quite something to observe and experience. So thank you very much, everyone, for being with us on the bankbeat.biz Quick Takes video blog. This has been Brad Lane, President and CEO of the Security Savings Bank in Gowrie, Iowa. I'm Tom Bankston, publisher of bankbeat.biz.